There exists a quality so rare, so profound, that when you possess it, others feel it before you even speak. Not arrogance, not force, not the desperate performance of superiority that lesser minds mistake for strength. This is something different entirely, something that separates those who command from those who merely demand, those who inspire devotion from those who extract compliance through fear alone. Machiavelli understood this truth centuries ago, observing how certain individuals moved through the world with an invisible crown upon their heads, how rooms shifted when they entered, how silence itself became pregnant with their presence. He knew that true superiority is not claimed through proclamation, but recognized through an ineffable quality that others sense in their bones, a quiet dominance that needs no defense because it operates beyond the realm of challenge. Consider for a moment the people you have encountered who possess this magnetic quality. They did not convince you of their worth through argument or demonstration. They simply were, and you knew. Something in their bearing, their gaze, the economy of their words communicated a fundamental difference. While others scrambled for attention and validation, these individuals existed in a different ecosystem entirely, one where approval flows toward them rather than being desperately sought. Machiavelli observed in the courts of Florence and Rome how this quality elevated certain advisors above their peers, how princes instinctively deferred to those who possessed it, regardless of title or birthright. This was not accident. This was the operation of laws as immutable as gravity, laws that govern human perception and social hierarchy, whether we acknowledge them or not. What creates this untouchable superiority? Why do some people radiate an authority that bypasses rational analysis and speaks directly to our unconscious assessment systems? The answer lies not in superficial tricks or performative displays, but in a fundamental orientation toward reality itself. Machiavelli recognized that those who truly command respect have made peace with certain truths that others flee from, have integrated knowledge that the masses keep at arm's length because accepting it would shatter their comfortable illusions. They have seen the machinery of power and human nature with unflinching eyes and emerged not cynical, but clarified, not bitter, but strategically astute. This inner clarity creates an outer presence that cannot be manufactured through technique alone because it emanates from genuine understanding rather than desperate compensation. The tragic irony is that most people spend their entire lives chasing recognition while actively repelling it through their very chase. They perform strength while radiating insecurity. They proclaim confidence while seeking constant validation. They demand respect while behaving in ways that make respect impossible. Machiavelli watched this pattern repeat across generations, observing how the ambitious destroy themselves through the very strategies they believe will elevate them. Meanwhile, those who understand the deeper principles move through the world with an ease that appears almost magical to those still trapped in the exhausting game of social climbing. They have discovered something that cannot be taught through maxims or rules, something that must be comprehended at a level beyond mere intellectual agreement. Today, you stand at a threshold. What follows is not a collection of tips for appearing superior, not a manual for faking qualities you lack, but an initiation into a way of being that transforms how others perceive and respond to you. Machiavelli's wisdom, forged in the brutal realities of Renaissance politics and tempered by his unflinching observations of human nature, offers a path to genuine authority that survives every test and context. This is about becoming the kind of person who needs no introduction, no credentials, no justification, because what you are speaks so loudly that questions of worthiness never arise. Prepare to understand what makes certain individuals untouchably superior, and more importantly, prepare to embody it yourself. The foundation of untouchable superiority begins with a truth so simple that most overlook it entirely. you must first know what you are before others can recognize it. Machiavelli observed that those who command genuine respect possess an unshakable clarity about their own nature, their capabilities, their limitations, and their place in the grand scheme of power and influence. This is not the delusional self-assessment of the narcissist who mistakes fantasy for reality, nor the false modesty of those who diminish themselves to appear humble. It is a precise, unflinching inventory of the self conducted with the same cold objectivity one might apply to evaluating a chess position or assessing a military formation. Those who possess this quality have looked into their own depths without flinching, acknowledging both their darkness and their light, their potential and their constraints, emerging with a self-knowledge so complete that external validation becomes irrelevant. This radical self-awareness creates a gravitational field around you that others cannot help but feel. When you know exactly what you are, you stop broadcasting the desperate frequency of someone seeking external confirmation. Your energy no longer leaks outward in the form of anxious self-promotion, defensive explanations, or the subtle pleading that underlies most human interaction. Instead, it consolidates inward, creating a density of presence that draws others toward you rather than pushing them away. Machiavelli noted how certain princes could enter a room of rivals and allies alike and immediately establish hierarchy, not through displays of power, but through this consolidated presence, this quality of being utterly at home in one's own skin, regardless of external circumstances. The masses live in a state of perpetual self-doubt disguised as certainty. They adopt opinions, personas, and values wholesale from their environment, then defend these borrowed elements with a ferocity that betrays their fundamental insecurity. They have never truly met themselves, never conducted the brutal audit of self-examination that separates the superior from the common. Machiavelli understood that this avoidance is not mere laziness, but a kind of existential cowardice, a refusal to confront the reality of one's own nature because doing so might shatter comfortable illusions. Those who achieve untouchable superiority have pushed through this cowardice, have stared into the abyss of their own being and emerged with hard-won knowledge that transforms every interaction thereafter. This self-knowledge extends beyond mere personality traits or skill inventories. It encompasses an understanding of your fundamental nature, your core drives, your authentic desires stripped of social conditioning and inherited expectations. Most people never access this level of self-comprehension because it requires questioning everything they have been taught to believe about who they should be. They confuse their parents' ambitions with their own, society's values with their authentic convictions, peer approval with genuine fulfillment. The superior individual has performed the archaeological excavation of self, digging through layers of conditioning to reach bedrock truth. This process is neither quick nor pleasant, but it is absolutely essential for developing the kind of unshakable presence that others recognize as genuine authority. When you achieve this clarity, something remarkable happens in your interactions with others. You stop trying to convince anyone of anything because you have nothing to prove. Your worth is not up for debate because it is not contingent on external validation. This creates a paradox that Machiavelli would have appreciated. The moment you cease seeking recognition, you become infinitely more recognizable. People sense the difference between someone performing confidence and someone who has moved beyond the need for such performances. They feel it in the quality of your attention, the economy of your words, the absence of that anxious energy that pervades most human communication. You have become a fixed point in a world of desperate motion, and fixed points inevitably attract those lost in the chaos. The practical implications of this self-knowledge are profound and immediate. You make decisions more quickly because you are not paralyzed by concern over how others will perceive your choices. You speak with greater authority because your words emerge from genuine conviction rather than calculated positioning. You navigate social hierarchies with ease because you are not constantly recalculating your status relative to others. Most importantly, you stop wasting enormous amounts of energy on the exhausting project of self-presentation that consumes lesser minds. This liberated energy becomes available for actual achievement, for the acquisition of real power and influence, rather than the appearance of such things. Machiavelli recognized that this efficiency of energy expenditure was one of the key differentiators between those who rose to greatness and those who merely talked about it. The journey to this self-knowledge is not a destination, but an ongoing practice. The superior individual returns again and again to the project of self-examination, refining and updating their understanding as they accumulate experience and wisdom. They do not cling to outdated self-concepts when reality demonstrates their inaccuracy. They remain ruthlessly honest with themselves, even when such honesty is uncomfortable, even when it requires acknowledging failure or limitation. This commitment to truth, first and foremost with oneself, creates an integrity of being that others recognize even if they cannot articulate what they are recognizing. You become someone whose presence carries weight because that presence is rooted in something real rather than constructed, something earned through the difficult work of genuine self-confrontation rather than borrowed from external sources. The second pillar of untouchable superiority lies in your relationship with need and desire. Machiavelli observed that most people are enslaved by their wants, constantly broadcasting their desperation for things they lack, whether material possessions, social status, romantic affection, or professional recognition. This neediness creates a repulsive frequency that pushes away the very things being pursued. The superior individual has mastered the art of wanting without needing, of pursuing goals with intensity while maintaining emotional independence from the outcome. This is not indifference or apathy, but a more sophisticated relationship with desire that preserves power and dignity regardless of whether specific objectives are achieved. Consider how desperation reveals itself in human behavior. The entrepreneur who reeks of financial strain repels investors even when the business plan is sound. The single person who broadcasts romantic desperation drives away potential partners even when they possess admirable qualities. The social climber, whose need for acceptance is palpable, becomes the object of contempt, even in the circles they seek to join. Machiavelli understood that humans possess an almost supernatural ability to detect need in others, and that this detection triggers instinctive hierarchical responses. We unconsciously categorize those who need as lower status than those who have options, those who beg as beneath those who can afford indifference. This brutal calculus operates below conscious awareness, but governs social dynamics with ironclad consistency. The path to freedom from need begins with abundance thinking that is not mere positive psychology platitude, but a strategic orientation toward reality. You must genuinely internalize that you have options, that no single opportunity represents your last chance, that the world contains multiple pathways to your objectives. This is not delusional thinking, but accurate assessment for anyone with genuine capability and resourcefulness. Machiavelli noted that those who understood their own value never became desperate because they recognized that value would eventually be recognized and rewarded, if not by this prince, then by another, if not in this city, then elsewhere. They maintained the patience and perspective that comes from knowing that rejection or failure in a specific instance does not invalidate their fundamental worth or potential. This abundance mentality transforms how you negotiate, how you build relationships, how you pursue goals. When you approach a business deal knowing you can walk away, you negotiate from strength regardless of the actual balance of power. When you enter romantic interactions with genuine abundance mentality, you become infinitely more attractive because you are not auditioning for approval, but offering value from a position of wholeness. When you seek professional opportunities while maintaining emotional independence from any specific outcome, you interview employers as much as they interview you, creating the kind of mutual evaluation that characterizes interactions between equals rather than the supplication of the desperate. Machiavelli would recognize this as the practical application of power principles that most people understand theoretically but fail to embody emotionally. The cultivation of this quality requires both internal and external work. Internally, you must address the psychological wounds and insecurities that create desperate attachment to specific outcomes. You must heal the scarcity mentality that makes every opportunity feel like life or death, every rejection feel like annihilation. This often requires confronting painful truths about why you feel so fundamentally incomplete, why you believe you need external validation or achievement to justify your existence. Machiavelli, though writing centuries before modern psychology, understood that these internal conflicts were the battlefield where most people lost the war for their own freedom and power. Those who achieved genuine authority had resolved these conflicts, had made peace with their own adequacy, independent of external confirmation. Externally, the work involves deliberately creating actual options and alternatives so that your abundance mentality rests on genuine foundation rather than wishful thinking. You build skills that make you valuable in multiple contexts. You cultivate relationships across different spheres so that no single social circle holds monopoly on your sense of belonging. You develop multiple income streams so that no single employer or client can hold your economic survival hostage. You maintain romantic options so that no single relationship becomes the repository of all your needs for connection and intimacy. This is not about backup plans born of cynicism, but about strategic resilience that preserves freedom and dignity. Machiavelli observed that those with true options could afford principles, could walk away from compromising situations, could maintain integrity precisely because they were not desperate. When you achieve this balance, something magical occurs in how others perceive and respond to you. Your very freedom from need creates desire in others. People want what appears scarce, what seems to have options, what does not desperately need them. You become more attractive romantically, more valuable professionally, more compelling socially, not through any change in your objective qualities, but through the energetic shift that occurs when desperation disappears. Machiavelli understood this as one of the great paradoxes of power. Those who need it least acquire it most easily, while those who most desperately seek it repel it through their very desperation. Your untouchable superiority grows directly from this freedom, this ability to engage fully with life and relationships while maintaining emotional sovereignty over your own well-being. The third element that creates untouchable superiority is your mastery of emotional regulation and the strategic deployment of reaction. Machiavelli observed that the common masses are governed by their emotional responses, reacting reflexively to provocations, insults, setbacks, and disappointments. They wear their hearts on their sleeves, broadcasting their internal states to anyone observing, creating vulnerability that others inevitably exploit. The superior individual has developed the capacity to experience emotions fully while maintaining conscious control over their external expression and behavioral response. This is not emotional suppression or denial, but a more sophisticated relationship with feeling that preserves power and strategic advantage in every situation. Consider how reactive behavior destroys power and status. The executive who explodes in anger during meetings loses respect even when their anger is justified. The individual who visibly crumbles under criticism reveals weakness that others will target in the future. The person who cannot hide their disappointment when plans fail broadcasts information that adversaries can use against them. Machiavelli understood that emotional transparency was a luxury only the powerful could afford, and even they were wise to practice strategic opacity. Those ascending the hierarchy could not afford to let others see their pain, fear, doubt, or desperate desire, because these revelations immediately lowered their status and created opportunities for manipulation. The development of this emotional mastery begins with the cultivation of a gap between stimulus and response. Something happens, an emotion arises. But before you react, there exists a space where conscious choice becomes possible. Most people never discover this space because they have trained themselves through years of conditioning to react instantaneously, to let emotions drive behavior without the intervention of conscious will. The superior individual has expanded this space through disciplined practice, creating room for strategic assessment before action. In this gap, they ask essential questions. What outcome do I desire here? What response serves my interests? What would wisdom dictate? What would strength look like in this moment? These questions interrupt automatic patterns and allow for responses that serve long-term interests rather than short-term emotional relief. This capacity for emotional regulation creates an almost supernatural composure that others find both attractive and slightly unnerving. When everyone around you is losing their heads, you remain centered and clear. When provocations fly, you respond with measured precision rather than reactive fury. When disappointments strike, you acknowledge them internally while maintaining external equanimity. This consistency of presence communicates strength at a primal level that bypasses rational analysis. Machiavelli noted how certain leaders could maintain perfect composure even as their cities burned. Their fortunes collapsed, their enemies triumphed, and this very composure often turned the tide because it prevented the panic and despair that would have sealed their defeat. Others took their cues from this emotional steadiness, finding courage and hope in the leader's refusal to succumb to circumstances. The strategic advantage of emotional mastery extends beyond merely avoiding the weaknesses that reactive behavior creates. It allows you to weaponize the emotional reactivity of others while remaining immune to their attempts to provoke you. You can deploy calculated displays of emotion when they serve your purposes, knowing that others will mistake these performances for genuine loss of control and reveal information or make mistakes based on that misperception. You can remain utterly calm in situations specifically designed to rattle you, frustrating those who seek to destabilize you and forcing them to reveal their own agendas and anxieties. Machiavelli would have recognized this as the kind of sophisticated psychological warfare that separated masterful strategists from mere thugs who relied on crude intimidation. The cultivation of this quality requires both philosophical preparation and practical discipline. Philosophically, you must internalize certain truths about the nature of emotions and their relationship to reality. Emotions are informative but not directive, signals to be interpreted rather than commands to be obeyed. External events have no power except what your interpretation grants them. No one can make you feel anything without your unconscious cooperation. These truths, when deeply integrated, liberate you from automatic emotional patterns and create space for conscious choice. Practically, you must train yourself through deliberate exposure to challenging situations, practicing maintaining composure under pressure, building the psychological muscle that allows control even when internal storms rage. Meditation, martial arts, public speaking, difficult conversations, all serve as training grounds for this essential capacity. When you achieve mastery in this domain, your interactions take on a quality that others recognize as remarkable, even if they cannot articulate the mechanism. You become someone who can be trusted in crisis because you do not panic. You become someone worth following because you do not waver when circumstances turn dark. You become someone who commands respect because you cannot be manipulated through emotional provocation. Most importantly, you become genuinely free because your well-being no longer depends on external circumstances arranging themselves to your liking. Machiavelli understood that this freedom was the ultimate form of power, the kind that survives every reversal of fortune because it exists independent of fortune's whims. Your untouchable superiority grows from this sovereign control over your own internal kingdom, a mastery that radiates outward and shapes how others perceive and respond to your very presence. The fourth characteristic of untouchable superiority manifests in your relationship with truth and your capacity for ruthless realism. Machiavelli built his entire philosophy on the distinction between how things appear and how they actually are, between the ideals people profess and the realities they live. The masses prefer comfortable illusions to uncomfortable truths, constructing elaborate fantasies about human nature, social dynamics, and power relationships that protect them from acknowledging brutal realities. The superior individual has abandoned these comforting fictions, choosing instead to see the world with unflinching clarity, regardless of how disturbing or demoralizing those perceptions might be. This commitment to reality over fantasy creates a strategic advantage so profound that it alone can account for the difference between success and failure, power and impotence. Consider how self-deception cripples most people's effectiveness in the world. They believe that hard work alone guarantees success, ignoring the roles of timing, positioning, and political maneuvering. They assume that competence will be recognized and rewarded, overlooking how often mediocrity triumphs through superior self-promotion and alliance building. They trust that loyalty and integrity will be reciprocated, remaining perpetually shocked when others betray them for marginal advantage. They operate based on how they wish the world worked rather than how it actually functions, and this disconnect between map and territory leads to repeated failure, disappointment, and exploitation. Machiavelli observed this pattern across centuries, watching idealists crushed by realists, moralists outmaneuvered by pragmatists, the naive devoured by the cunning. The commitment to ruthless realism begins with acknowledging uncomfortable truths about human nature that most people prefer to ignore. People are fundamentally self-interested, their proclaimed altruism typically serving deeper, selfish motives. Loyalty is conditional and situational, lasting only as long as the relationship serves both parties' interests. Power respects power while exploiting weakness, regardless of moral considerations. Competence matters less than perception in many contexts, and managing how others perceive you often yields greater returns than actual skill development. These truths are not cynical observations, but accurate descriptions of how humans actually behave when you strip away the rhetoric and observe actions rather than words. Machiavelli's genius lay in his willingness to articulate these realities that everyone senses but most refuse to acknowledge. This realism extends to unflinching assessment of your own situation and prospects. The superior individual does not indulge in wishful thinking about their current position, their actual capabilities, or the likelihood of various outcomes. They assess their strengths and weaknesses with the same cold objectivity they apply to evaluating others. They recognize when they are outmatched and need to retreat or regroup, rather than persisting in losing battles out of pride. They acknowledge when strategies are failing and require adjustment, rather than doubling down on approaches that reality has already invalidated. This capacity for honest self-assessment prevents the kind of catastrophic mistakes that destroy those who cannot bear to admit when they are wrong or when their plans are not working. The practical applications of this ruthless realism are immediate and profound. In business, you make decisions based on actual market conditions and human behavior rather than hopeful projections and best-case scenarios. In relationships, you evaluate people based on their demonstrated patterns rather than their stated intentions or your wishful interpretations. In career development, you acknowledge the actual rules of advancement in your field rather than the official narratives about meritocracy and fairness. In conflict, you assess true balance of power and choose strategies accordingly rather than fighting battles you cannot win out of righteous indignation. Machiavelli would recognize this as the foundation of effective action in any domain, the bedrock upon which all successful strategy must be built. The cultivation of this quality requires deliberate practice in distinguishing between what you wish were true and what actually is true. You must train yourself to look at situations from multiple angles, seeking disconfirming evidence for your preferred interpretations. You must cultivate relationships with people who will tell you hard truths rather than surrounding yourself with yes men and flatterers. You must study history and human behavior to internalize patterns that repeat across contexts and eras. You must become comfortable with cognitive dissonance, able to hold conflicting information in mind simultaneously while seeking synthesis rather than premature resolution. Most importantly, you must develop the emotional fortitude to face disturbing realities without collapsing into despair or retreating into denial. When you achieve this capacity for ruthless realism, you gain a decisive advantage over those still operating in fantasy. You see opportunities others miss because their assumptions blind them. You avoid traps that ensnare those who cannot acknowledge certain possibilities. You make predictions with greater accuracy because your models of reality more closely match actual conditions. You build strategies on solid ground rather than wishful sand. Machiavelli understood that this clear sight was perhaps the most valuable quality a prince could possess, more important than courage or charisma or even intelligence, because it enabled effective action while others flailed against realities they refused to acknowledge. Your untouchable superiority grows from this foundation of truth, this refusal to participate in the collective delusions that govern most human activity. The fifth dimension of untouchable superiority reveals itself in your relationship with time and your capacity for strategic patience. Machiavelli observed that the masses live in a state of desperate urgency, seeking immediate gratification and quick results, abandoning promising strategies at the first sign of difficulty or delay. They measure their worth by visible progress and external validation, becoming anxious and reactive when results do not manifest according to their impatient timelines. The superior individual has cultivated a different temporal orientation, one that recognizes great achievements require extended effort, that true power accumulates slowly through compound effects, that patience itself becomes a weapon when wielded strategically against those enslaved by urgency. Consider how impatience undermines most people's potential. They abandon learning new skills when mastery does not come immediately, switching between pursuits without ever developing true expertise in anything. They exit promising business ventures before compound effects can manifest, chasing the next shiny opportunity in an endless cycle that prevents wealth accumulation. They sabotage relationships by demanding premature commitment or by fleeing at the first sign of conflict rather than allowing deeper bonds to develop through shared experience. They compromise their values and long-term interests for immediate advantages, trading enduring power for temporary relief or gratification. Machiavelli watched this pattern repeat across generations. observing how those who could not delay gratification rarely achieved anything of lasting significance. The development of strategic patience begins with a fundamental shift in how you conceive of achievement and success. You must internalize that worthwhile objectives typically require years of sustained effort, that overnight success is almost always the visible culmination of invisible preparation, that the gap between initiation and fruition is where most people fail. This understanding allows you to commit to long-term projects without the anxiety and self-doubt that plague those expecting rapid results. You can plant seeds and trust the process of growth rather than digging them up every few days to check progress. You can invest in relationships, skills, and ventures that will pay dividends years hence rather than demanding immediate returns on every investment of energy and attention. This temporal sophistication creates multiple strategic advantages that compound over time. First, it allows you to pursue paths that others avoid precisely because they require extended commitment before yielding results. This reduced competition means that when you finally achieve mastery or market position in these domains, you face less rivalry and can command greater returns. Second, it enables you to make investments in your development and positioning that others cannot match because they need resources for immediate consumption rather than future capability. Third, it allows you to weather storms and setbacks that destroy those operating on shorter timelines because you have built sufficient reserves and redundancy to survive periods of difficulty. Machiavelli understood that those who controlled the longest time horizons typically prevailed over those thinking in terms of days or weeks. The practical application of this principle extends across every domain of life. In skill development, you commit to 10,000 hours of deliberate practice rather than seeking shortcuts that promise expertise without effort. In wealth building, you invest consistently over decades, allowing compound returns to work their mathematical magic rather than seeking quick scores that rarely materialize. In relationship building, you invest years in cultivating genuine connections based on mutual value creation rather than transactional networking that yields shallow contacts. In reputation building, you deliver consistent excellence over extended periods, allowing cumulative evidence of your capabilities to speak louder than any marketing or self-promotion. Each of these strategies requires patience that most people simply do not possess, creating opportunities for those who do. The cultivation of this quality requires both philosophical grounding and practical discipline. Philosophically, you must confront and resolve your anxiety about mortality and the passage of time, recognizing that urgency often stems from fear of death or irrelevance, rather than strategic assessment of optimal timing. You must develop trust in process and in your own sustained effort, confidence that consistent action in the right direction will eventually yield results, even when immediate feedback is absent. Practically, you must structure your life to reduce the financial and emotional pressures that force short-term thinking, building sufficient stability that you can afford to think in years and decades rather than days and weeks. This often means accepting lower immediate consumption in exchange for greater future optionality and power. When you achieve mastery of time in this way, you gain an almost supernatural advantage over those still enslaved by urgency. You can wait for optimal conditions while others act prematurely out of impatience. You can maintain positions and strategies through temporary setbacks that cause others to panic and abandon ship. You can make investments that will mature years hence while others chase immediate gratification. You can build slowly and solidly while others construct impressive but fragile structures that collapse at the first serious test. Machiavelli would recognize this as one of the key differentiators between those who achieve enduring power and those who briefly sparkle before fading into obscurity. Your untouchable superiority grows from this sovereign relationship with time, this ability to play a longer game than those around you can conceive. The sixth pillar, supporting untouchable superiority, emerges from your capacity for selective revelation and strategic mystery. Machiavelli understood that transparency is a liability in most contexts, that revealing too much of yourself creates vulnerability and diminishes the power that comes from calculated unpredictability. The masses broadcast every thought, feeling, plan, and desire to anyone who will listen, desperately seeking validation and connection, never recognizing how this transparency destroys their mystique and creates opportunities for manipulation. The superior individual has mastered the art of selective disclosure, revealing only what serves their strategic interests, while maintaining an aura of depth and complexity that keeps others perpetually intrigued and slightly off balance. Consider how oversharing destroys power and attraction in every domain. The executive who reveals their complete strategy gives competitors information to counter their moves. The negotiator who shows their full hand loses leverage and invites exploitation. The romantic prospect who reveals all their insecurities and past traumas in early conversations destroys mystery and triggers flight responses. The social climber who transparently broadcasts their ambitions and calculations becomes the object of mockery and obstruction. Machiavelli observed that those who governed effectively maintained careful control over information flows, revealing only what advanced their interests while cultivating a mystique that made others uncertain about their true capabilities, intentions, and limits. The practice of strategic mystery begins with the recognition that silence and ambiguity are often more powerful than disclosure and clarity. When you decline to answer certain questions, when you leave gaps in your narrative, when you allow others to wonder and speculate rather than satisfying their curiosity, you create a gravitational pull that makes you more rather than less interesting. People are drawn to what they do not fully understand, repelled by what they have completely figured out. By maintaining elements of enigma in your presentation, you ensure that others remain engaged, curious, perpetually trying to understand you rather than filing you away in some neat category and moving on. This is not about dishonesty or pretense, but about recognizing that you are under no obligation to satisfy others' curiosity at the expense of your own power. This selective revelation extends to your capabilities, resources, and future intentions. The superior individual does not advertise all their skills and connections, maintaining reserves that can surprise when deployed at optimal moments. They do not reveal their full financial position, leaving others uncertain about their true leverage and options. They do not announce their plans and goals, preventing both the interference of enemies and the unconscious sabotage that occurs when others know too much about your intentions. Machiavelli noted how certain princes kept even their closest advisors uncertain about their ultimate strategies, revealing only the minimum necessary to secure cooperation while maintaining maximum flexibility to adjust course as circumstances evolved. The practical advantages of this approach are numerous and significant. When people do not fully understand your capabilities, they cannot accurately assess whether to challenge or cooperate with you, often defaulting to caution and deference. When your resources are unknown, others cannot calculate optimal strategies for extracting concessions or exploiting weaknesses. When your intentions remain ambiguous, adversaries cannot mobilize effective opposition because they are unsure which direction to defend against. When your past contains gaps and mysteries, people fill those gaps with projections that often exceed reality, attributing to you greater experience and capability than you might actually possess. Each of these effects contributes to an aura of power and competence that exceeds what pure transparency could ever achieve. The cultivation of this quality requires overcoming the deep human need for validation and connection that drives most people toward excessive disclosure. You must become comfortable with being somewhat unknown, somewhat misunderstood, somewhat enigmatic, even to people you like and trust. You must resist the temptation to correct every misperception, to fill every silence, to answer every question, recognizing that sometimes mystery serves you better than clarity. This requires genuine security in your own self-worth, because insecure people cannot bear to let others wonder about them, desperately needing to control perceptions through constant explanation and justification. The superior individual, secure in their own value, can afford to remain partially unknown. When you master this dimension of presence, you acquire a quality that others find magnetic and compelling. People become fascinated by you precisely because they cannot quite figure you out. They attribute depth and complexity to you that might exceed reality, because humans tend to romanticize what remains partially hidden. They treat you with more care and respect because they are uncertain about the consequences of disrespecting someone whose full capabilities remain unknown. They remain engaged with you over time because complete understanding never arrives. The mystery never fully resolves. Machiavelli would recognize this as sophisticated power play, the kind of subtle psychological advantage that compounds over time and contexts. Your untouchable superiority grows from this strategic opacity, this refusal to make yourself completely legible to those around you. The seventh and culminating element of untouchable superiority manifests in your relationship with power itself and your willingness to exercise it without apology or excessive justification. Machiavelli observed that most people are deeply uncomfortable with their own power, seeking to disguise it, minimize it, or justify it through elaborate moral frameworks that render them ineffective when decisive action is required. They want to be liked more than respected, to be seen as good more than effective, to avoid responsibility for outcomes through endless consultation and consensus building. The superior individual has made peace with power and its exercise, understanding that authority without the will to use it is meaningless, that leadership requires the capacity to make difficult decisions and accept their consequences, that some situations demand strength rather than deliberation. Consider how power aversion cripples most people's ability to lead and achieve significant objectives. The manager who cannot fire underperformers destroys team morale and organizational effectiveness. The parent who cannot set and enforce boundaries raises entitled and dysfunctional children. The leader who seeks universal approval makes no one happy and accomplishes nothing of significance. The individual who cannot advocate for their own interests gets perpetually exploited by those less scrupulous. Machiavelli watched this pattern repeat across history, observing how well-intentioned leaders destroyed their own cities and populations through excessive mercy, how princes lost their thrones through inability to take necessary but unpopular actions, how the squeamish were devoured by the ruthless, regardless of moral superiority. The integration of power begins with accepting certain uncomfortable truths about authority and its exercise. All significant decisions create winners and losers, and those who lead must accept responsibility for who loses. Consensus is often impossible, and waiting for it prevents necessary action. Being liked and being respected are different objectives that sometimes conflict, and respect typically serves long-term interests better than affection. Some people will resent your success and power regardless of how you acquire or exercise it, and attempting to mollify these critics is futile and demeaning. Machiavelli articulated these truths with a clarity that scandalized his contemporaries, but that every effective leader has independently discovered through experience. This comfort with power manifests in multiple observable behaviors that distinguish the superior from the common. You make decisions without excessive hand-wringing or consultation when you possess sufficient information and authority to act. You deliver difficult messages directly rather than cushioning them in so much softening language that the core content gets lost. You set boundaries and enforce consequences without elaborate justification or apology. You claim credit for your achievements and accept responsibility for your failures without deflection or excuse. You advocate for your interests and those under your protection without shame or excessive deference to those who might be inconvenienced. Each of these behaviors requires comfort with power that most people never develop. The practical advantages of this comfort are immediate and substantial. People trust and follow leaders who demonstrate decisiveness and willingness to take responsibility for outcomes. Organizations function more effectively when power flows clearly and decisions get made without endless circular discussions. Negotiations favor those who are comfortable wielding whatever leverage they possess without apology or embarrassment. Relationships become cleaner when people state their needs and boundaries directly rather than engaging in elaborate passive-aggressive dances. Machiavelli understood that effectiveness in any domain ultimately required this willingness to exercise power when circumstances demanded it, that all the wisdom and capability in the world meant nothing without the will to act decisively. The cultivation of this quality requires confronting whatever moral confusion or psychological damage has created power aversion in the first place. Often this stems from childhood experiences where authority was abused, creating associations between power and cruelty that must be consciously disentangled. Sometimes it emerges from misguided egalitarian ideology that treats all hierarchies as illegitimate, ignoring that differentials in capability, wisdom, and initiative naturally create authority gradients. Occasionally it reflects genuine moral sensitivity that must be integrated with pragmatic realism rather than abandoned. Whatever the source, overcoming power aversion requires both intellectual work to clarify your thinking and experiential work to practice exercising authority in progressively more consequential situations. When you achieve genuine comfort with power and its exercise, a remarkable transformation occurs in how others perceive and respond to you. They sense that you are willing to make difficult decisions, to enforce boundaries, to take responsibility for outcomes, and this sensing triggers instinctive deference responses. They trust you to lead because they recognize you have the fortitude to do what needs doing rather than what is popular or comfortable. They respect you even when they disagree with your decisions because they recognize the courage required to exercise authority rather than abdicate it. They feel safe following you because your strength suggests you can protect them and pursue objectives effectively. Machiavelli would recognize this as the culmination of the qualities that create untouchable superiority, the integration of all previous elements into a presence that commands without demanding, that leads without begging, that exercises power without apology. Your superiority becomes untouchable precisely because it rests on genuine capability and will rather than pretense and performance, creating an authority that others recognize in their bones before their minds can articulate what they are sensing. So we return to where we began, to that ineffable quality that makes certain individuals untouchably superior, that creates an aura others feel before a single word is spoken. You now understand that this is not magic or genetic lottery, but the systematic cultivation of specific qualities that anyone with sufficient commitment can develop. The path Machiavelli illuminated centuries ago remains as relevant today as it was in Renaissance Florence. Know yourself with ruthless honesty, master your needs and emotions, see reality without comforting distortions, cultivate patience that outlasts your competitors, maintain strategic mystery, and embrace the power you possess without apology. These are not tricks or techniques, but fundamental orientations toward yourself and the world that transform how you move through life and how others respond to your presence. The journey to untouchable superiority is neither quick nor comfortable. It requires confronting truths about yourself and human nature that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. It demands the courage to stand alone when necessary, to pursue unpopular paths, to accept responsibility without deflection, to exercise power without seeking constant validation. It asks you to abandon the comforting fictions that make mediocrity bearable, and to embrace a more demanding relationship with reality. But the rewards for those who complete this transformation are profound and permanent. You become someone who commands respect through presence rather than position, who influences through example rather than argument, who leads through demonstrated capability rather than claimed authority. Understand that this superiority is not about dominating or diminishing others, but about becoming fully realized yourself, about actualizing the potential that lies dormant in most people because they lack the courage or clarity to pursue it. When you embody these qualities, you naturally elevate those around you through your example and your refusal to participate in the small games that consume lesser minds. You create space for others to rise by demonstrating what is possible when someone commits fully to their own development and refuses to accept the limitations that society would impose. Machiavelli understood that true power is generative rather than merely extractive, that those who achieve genuine superiority often catalyze excellence in others rather than hoarding all advantage for themselves. The world will always be divided between those who make excuses and those who make progress, between those who complain about circumstances and those who master them, between those who seek comfort and those who seek growth. You now possess the map to the territory where untouchable superiority lives. The question is whether you have the fortitude to make the journey, to pay the price in comfort and illusion that genuine transformation demands. Most who hear this message will nod appreciatively and change nothing, remaining exactly where they are, because the gap between understanding and implementation is where the majority of human potential dies. But a few, perhaps you among them, will recognize this as the invitation it is and will begin the systematic work of becoming someone whose superiority is so evident, so grounded in genuine capability and presence, that it becomes undeniable and untouchable. Take this knowledge and make it yours through action rather than mere intellectual agreement. Begin today the work of ruthless self-examination, of mastering your emotional responses, of seeing reality clearly, of developing strategic patience, of maintaining appropriate mystery, of embracing your power. Start small if you must, with single decisions made consciously rather than reactively, with single moments where you choose strength over comfort, with single interactions where you refuse to seek approval at the expense of respect. These small choices compound over time into fundamental transformation, into the kind of presence that others recognize as remarkable even if they cannot articulate why. The path is clear, the principles are proven, the only remaining question is whether you will walk it. If this message resonates in your bones, if you recognize yourself in what has been described here or aspire to become the person these principles would forge you into, then demonstrate that recognition through engagement. Leave a comment sharing which of these 7 principles strikes you as most challenging or most relevant to your current situation. Subscribe to this channel to continue this journey of transformation and to signal to yourself that you are committed to becoming more than you currently are. Share this video with someone you know who is ready for this message, who has the capacity for genuine growth rather than mere comfort seeking. And most importantly, act on what you have learned here, not tomorrow or next week, but today, right now, in the very next decision you make and the very next interaction you have. Your superiority is not something you claim, but something you become through 10,000 small choices that align with these principles. Begin now.